There we are. And we're live. It's Wednesday. Another
Yes,
Wednesday,
it is.
another amazing Wednesday. And as our second Wednesdays of the month, we're talking about storytelling, how to craft your story. And we're so happy we have Amy for this. And speaking, because we have speaking patterns, and there's a lot we can deep dive into. And other weeks, we're going to talk about podcasting and live streaming, everything that goes into those special places of lighting, microphone, guesting. What does that look like? And then being on the stage. That's another big category. So we've got lots of things on our second Tuesdays each month. So, Amy, tell us what we're going to be doing today.
We're going to be talking about some of the things we don't always think about, right? When we speak out loud, it's one of those things that we just naturally take it like for granted. Like, of course I can speak, but it's how we speak, how we deliver our message that really matters. And I think about like my niece recently who was like told, we started watching her run and she was playing sports and we're like, what is she doing? She goes, what do you mean? I'm just running. Like, not normally you're not running. Like, we take it for granted, some of the basic things that we do until somebody points it out, goes, that's not quite right. And now she's in therapy helping her run appropriately so she doesn't damage her knees.
Wow.
Sometimes we need somebody to go, we could do this a little differently, a little bit better, and it'll be better for you. Not that what you're doing is wrong. It's just there's a better way of doing something.
Exactly. And it's funny because I know we talk about some of the our unkind words hurt, ouch, and how those words can affect us and keep us from telling our stories and make us just pause instead of going for it. And then when we don't have that opportunity to practice, then we don't know how to do it. And that's okay. It's just a different part of the journey to get us where we're going. So, yeah, it's okay to say, I need a little help. It's okay to say, yeah, you can help me. It's a two-way street.
Yes, it's accepting the help and asking for the help. Both of those are needed. And when we talk, we actually need somebody to listen, to give us that feedback, to allow us to express ourselves, but we also need to know how it impacted the person that we're talking to. So speaking is one of those harder things, I think, to do alone without others around, even if it's a best friend, your sister, your brother, your mom, or a coach, right? Like you got to talk to somebody in order to get that feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's so interesting for me when I think about that feedback as well. Is one of those pieces of advice, film yourself.
Yes.
Having been a 4-time podcaster now, that has been one of the most valuable things for me is sitting in my own editing room, watching where are my speech patterns, where am I getting caught up, where can I pause a moment and let the other person talk. So I think it's real important to just listen to ourselves and remove yourself like you're listening to somebody else, because I think that's where we beat ourselves up again of like, oh no, just pretend it's another person. How would you help them? What would you want to hear from them?
I agree. I remember the very first time I was editing my own voice, and it's something I was always afraid of was just listening to my own voice. Like I couldn't do it. And as I was editing my first podcast back in 2020, I was like, this, at first, I hated every moment of it. But I started more paying attention, like you said, paying attention to what I was doing. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I actually do have some really good things to say. Just my co host said a lot more. That was what I also realized. It was like, he was brilliant. He was great. But I'm like, stop talking, Mike. I needed a better place to speak as well. But it took that time and that partner for me to be able to build my confidence in order to realize, wait a minute, I can do this on my own. editing did help, and recognizing I did need to slow down with my speech, the speed of it, and I had to pause. And every time, sometimes you pause it, my co-host would jump in, right? And I'm like, but okay, I lost, like, so there's a cadence that needs to happen and a flow. Um, but that's the things you learn. And then you do get to the beauty, like you said, the videos, you get to go back and see how you progressed as
Yes.
well.
Yes. Yes. And, I think of it to acting as well. We can talk very robotic when we're reading our scripts, or we try to make it sound as natural as possible. I have so much fun when I watch shows and I listen to people speak, and it's experience, of course, and what makes the great actor versus the others who are actors. And just that reality of telling the story, embodying the story. And what is important in acting, as I'm waving my hands around, is the body language, making it believable. Like,
Yeah.
I love you. I love you.
Right.
It's just that. Mm.
Yeah, and then body language is a whole nother topic, right? I,
Yeah.
I talk with my hands a lot. So sometimes I actually will put my hands like in a place where I can't talk wildly with my hands, but it is appropriate to bring them in once in a while to move your body, to, have movement. But for me, when I first started, my nervous tick was me tapping my foot like thumper. It was awful. And I was like, my husband's like, do you know you're doing that? I'm like, nope, I had no idea. I was so unconsciously aware of it. And it was so loud and obnoxious. I'm like, how did I not hear it? But I was so scared I didn't hear it.
Yeah.
It was just it was a nervous reaction. I no longer do that, but it took me a while to let go of that. Like body took over and I was thumper. You know,
Yeah.
like but that's okay. That's the progress.
Yeah.
So Christina, what's one of the things that you noticed that you've adapted to or you've changed from when you started to where you are now that you're very proud of?
Mm. That's a great question. One of the things that I catch myself on is starting the sentence with so repeatedly. So, like that's my interjection. And I become very conscious of it. Now, my so's are still there, but there's only onesie twosies now. But it is such a big different
Mhm,
place of where I'm starting my sentence versus just, that's part of the conversation piece. Are
mhm,
we changing subjects? We don't always have to use so. We can grab into the moment, grab into that last couple words. One of the things I love when I watch my guests is the thing we learned in school. So, oh, there it was.
It was. I was like, "Ooh, demonstrated."
Got it. What does New Year's mean to you? Well, let me tell you, Christina, what New Year's means to me is so it is that moment of having the time to think. What kind of things are popping up in your brain at that moment that buys you a little bit of time, but doesn't take you off subject and lose the point of the question, which can happen too.
You demonstrated that very well just a few minutes ago too. When I asked you the question, you're like, "That was a really great question." It gave you time to pause and think about it without a big, long, silent pause, and then you were able to continue. So you demonstrated that really well. If people
Yeah.
were paying attention, I did. And that's
Which
okay because it's totally normal and it's something that's very natural and conversational.
exactly. And here's the thing, you are the storyteller, you are the mentor. So you have this gift of listening a little differently to speech patterns than others. And I think that's what's so brilliant about what you have to say. I think I mentioned in a private conversation between you and I someone who also was very aware of conversations, caught on to me in a conversation. It's like, oh, I already evoked the emotion that you were feeling as you were talking, and it was apparent, just, but this is what I do for a living. And I'm like, yes, that's terrific. You can't mask some of those things to the experts.
No, and there's techniques that we know, and it really does help in those moments where you're like, I do need a moment. What am I thinking about? Like, because sometimes your brain just goes blank. And you're like, what do you do? How do you have a podcast interview? And what do you do when those moments happen? Like, there are certain techniques you can come up with, like asking, like, that's a really good question. Could I reframe it to a different question? And, and sometimes I've actually re-asked myself a different question, something I was better equipped or wanting to answer.
Mm-hmm.
That's very similar, but different slightly. And I've never been called out on, like it's close, but it gives me time and it gives me the direction I can answer it with versus going, how would I answer this question? I don't know. Like, you're live or you're recording, you've got to have those moments too.
Yeah. Well, I think this would be a nice segue to bring in one of our call-ins today, Karen Edgett, and how she would deal with that moment of, oh, somebody just asked me a question. How do I manage that? So let's welcome Karen. Hello, Karen.
Hello. So nice to see you, Christina, and nice to meet you, Amy.
Nice to meet you.
I can totally resonate with everything you guys are saying. I had run a podcast for a couple years, and my first editor was like, "You say I have to take the ums out between absolutely everything." And I had another problem I can't really resolve yet that I'm trying to work on. Like, I do pretty good as a podcast host, but when I'm talking to other people or asking me questions, I'm in this sort of metaphysical space of a creator, an artist, and I go into like a bit of excitement of all the things that I can see and talk about, and I switch subjects like mid-sentence and go from one thing to another, and I can't finish a thought. And that's driving me nuts. I'm like, how can I do better on a podcast finishing a thought when I'm so excited and I can see all these angles, and all this stuff to talk about. I think I end up losing my audience because I jump around so much.
Amy, what advice do you have for that? I know you're the expert.
My brain naturally does that, right? I remember when I finally learned what neurodivergent brain was, I was like, oh, that's totally me. And I jump around like crazy, right? And I love it because I can keep up with people, but not everybody can. And I've had to learn to hold on to a thought. And it's like, it's my responsibility to finish this thought because the audience people are listening and they need me to finish this thought. Otherwise, it's not really valid. And so for me, it was more about the ownership of my communication that helped me to hold it and go, oh, this is a really brilliant idea and I want to share it. And if I skip around, I can't. And there are times where I'm still tired and I will skip around because it's my natural tendency. But yeah, that was for me. It was the ownership of the thought that helped.
That's a really good way to look at it. I work a lot. I feel like I work a lot with guides too, like, beings around me that help me. And I'm just thinking, as you said that, maybe I can ask my guides to help me finish thoughts and bring a little clarity to whatever my subjects are that I'm talking about. I'm just one of those people that has 15 different projects going at any given time. And so that's part of the reason I jump around a lot, is because my natural tendency in life is to do that as well. And you're right, it's not just owning owning your point. It's also, I think you sort of alluded to this. It's like you owe it to your audience to finish a thought,
Yes.
like the whole point of you being there and people tuning in is to hear the completion of, what it is what message it is you came to deliver before you start another one.
Exactly. And we're here to teach, right? That's what a podcasting hour is to
Yeah.
inform.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes for people that really feel a little bit scattered, will hold a crystal in their hand or something in their hand to help ground them. So, I do a grounding, for me just because I need to be grounded, but those things do help too. But it is the responsibility of like them being able to hear the message is our responsibility. It's their responsibility to just listen to the message.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And I think also, I don't want to get off topic because that's easy for me to do. But another thing I've noticed when I listen back to, not so much when I'm doing the interviewing, but when other people are interviewing me, I start taking over the interview because I can see the direction it should go in. And that happens to me a lot too. And I'm not sure if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I have been practicing by taking interviews with maybe people that don't have huge audiences and they maybe don't have a lot of experience really directing the conversation, or they haven't interviewed someone with my expertise or knowledge or insight before. And I'm like, well, I start asking them the questions and then that leads the conversation. And then I can sort of start to make my point. And sometimes I think, well, they probably didn't like that in the end.
So, Christina, do you like when people ask you questions in your podcast?
What I do like about it is it's an opportunity two ways. You get to know the host a little bit better because the host is usually just sitting there, mostly asking the questions. There's one or 2 points of relatability, but we don't often get the storytelling out of the host. We're getting the storytelling out of the guest. And I do like that back and forth because then it becomes much more conversational than just straight up interview. And since we are actually highlighting the guests during the podcast, I think it's a great way to bring that around. What I'm going to do right now is take a pause. Karen, I'm going to bring you backstage. Don't go far away. And we are going to have our midstream commercial to talk about our visibility group class that we have, our visibility accountability group, let me say that correctly, on Wednesdays at 7 p.m. Eastern time that you can join us.
Share your story, own your name, step in the light, ignite your flame, show up, shine out, it's time to be heard, flip fear into power with every word, visibility, accountability, we write a wild new legacy.
Legacy was the last part of that. We write a wild new legacy. Oh my goodness. Yes, that is written just for us.
Christina did a beautiful job with that song.
Too much fun, too much fun. So yeah, I'm loving this conversation. I love storytelling. I love having someone, and this is part of what we want to be doing here on these Wednesday mornings, is bringing people in to banter with us, share us with the world. And then in our accountabilities in the evenings, we'll be privately on Zoom so that we can get even more into depth and share our stories. Because one of the things I love about the accountability is when you're listening to other people, you're like, yes, I've been thinking about that. Oh, that's my next step. Oh, I want to show up next week with what I've been working on. And getting some of that, I'm using one of your words, clarity
Mhm.
of messaging and what we're trying to say out there in our visible world.
Yeah, and it's one of the ways we get to build our confidence is practicing, right? We need to practice what we want to perfect. And these are great safe spaces for people to practice, to try things out for no judgment, but just to express themselves and see if it's something and you get to choose. Did I like it? Did I not like it? This one, I really love this. My greatest stories were just a blip in my conversation. When somebody's like, wait, go back to that. That was really interesting. And I'm like, what do you mean? And when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that is interesting. I can build that out. And I did. Those are my most common stories that I tell people over and over again. And it wasn't because I sat down and thought about it. It was a conversation I was having about something, and somebody paused me and went, wait, tell me more. That's what these accountability groups are all about, is to go, wait, tell me more. I want to know more about you because this is fascinating.
Yeah. Those nuggets that resonate with us in some form or fashion, not necessarily because they've happened to us, but there was some spark that ignited and went, whoa, just what you said. I want to learn more. I want to know more. And, on that note, we just had a conversation earlier this morning, believe it or not, of what it is about like crime podcasts that people get into. It's like they want to know more. And there's some intrigue. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and talk about crime, but what is it that makes something intriguing? What is it when you are coaching, Amy, that you advise in that intrigue?
Yeah, for me, my intrigue is human behavior. And I think that's partly what true crime is that's human behavior. And it's something we don't know, so we want to understand it. So when I'm coaching people too, it's like we know our stories. And we don't always recognize what is interesting. Because sometimes our everyday life or everyday moments, we're like, that's not interesting at all. And you're like, no, to the other person, it is. Because it's a world they are never been exposed to or experienced. Or like me and you both have family that are from other countries that not everybody gets to know what that's like to have a grandparent that you're like, what did they say? That's not everybody's life. Like, and so for us that do have it, we get to bond over those moments. But the other ones are like, what do you mean? Your cousin, my own cousin, my grandmother's grandson goes, can you tell me what grandma just said?
Mm.
I had to interpret my grandparents to him.
Yeah.
That's not everyday life for most people. And not some people may not know that story or know how that works in a family. And for me as a kid, I always wanted to know, like, could I just like be in the room and see what another family looks like?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How do they operate? I know my life, but I don't know yours.
I love it. The word that's coming out, or words, is unique, the uniquely you.
Yeah.
Because just like you said, it might be your everyday, it's your normal. That word cracks me up when, like, the be normal. Like, there's no such thing. All of us are normal in our own ways.
Right?
So my normal is completely different, but it's like, what is the uniquely you? And I think when we take those moments, we can find so many times in our lives where we're not quite like someone else. And it's not a bad thing, it's an interesting thing. So let's bring our guest back in, Karen, and find out something that is uniquely her. Welcome back, Karen.
Welcome back to me. Welcome back to you guys. Got me off guard there. What is something that's unique to me? Well, I would say I can talk to flowers. Is that pretty unique?
That is. It sounds beautiful.
I think many people can and maybe don't say it out loud, but it happened during COVID. The flowers started speaking to me, and I didn't really have much choice but to listen. And being an artist, I'm already like on that thinner veil between metaphysical world and the physical world, and I now I have this full blown like relationship with the flowers, and I've made an oracle deck, and I've done all kinds of things so that others can hear their wisdom too. And it's I would say that's fairly unique to me.
And it's sharing those unique stories, because sometimes it's the vulnerability that comes along with like, oh, I'm going to put this out there. What does this feel like? And then the braveness when you step forward and going, oh, wow, I'm not the only one. And finding other people who can relate and can understand, or who want to learn more.
Yeah. And the thing too is like plants are unique. I love plants, and I talk to my plants. I mean, I have never heard my plants, but I've talked to my plants. I touch my plants and I'm like, how are you doing today? Like, I don't know. I just do. And my plants flourish. So I think there's a beauty to it. And yeah, sharing that out loud and realizing there's another way that maybe we can interact with plants is a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's gotten really quite profound. I mean, the flowers in particular, excuse me, the flowers in particular are telling me that they can shift the consciousness of whoever's interacting with them, or even the world, and they're working on it. And it's like really easy. It's almost like going to church, just being with the flowers. And it's an energetic thing, their blooms have, anyway, I could go on and on about the flowers, but the point is it did take me a long time to say it out loud. At first I could feel them directing me and telling me how to incorporate them in some creative projects and how to use them, almost like alchemy, to upgrade people. Upgrade's a bad word, but maybe, help people feel better, shift into a more happy place during COVID. And it was really quite magical, everything that was happening. And then eventually I'm just like, all right, I can hear your exact words. It's like I can get the messages. And I still am a little careful as to who I say that out loud to. It's almost easier to say it on a podcast to a bunch of strangers than it is to my own inner circle of family and whatnot, because they're like, woo.
You bring up two really good points. Well, really one good point, and I want to address your flowers. But the point is, not everybody's the right person to tell your story to, especially when you're developing it, right? The people that know us the best usually are the ones that are trying so hard to support you, and they can be critical with their comment without intention. So a lot of times it is easier to work with strangers because they have no preconceived notion of who you are. They're only just hearing you and expressing it with you and wanting the best from you. And they don't have the fear for you to tell it out loud. Right. So
Yeah, I think fear, I agree that fear is a little bit of a driver for people, but I also feel people, my family and friends over the years, I've just noticed this more clearly, is they prefer you to stay in the box that they're familiar with and to follow family codes and protocols. And so strangers don't have any of that, and it's not always fear driven. It's more just familiarity. It's like, don't change.
Yes.
Don't change too much for us. It's too fast, and too fast. And the strangers don't have any of those. They don't care. They're showing up to hear something different. So they're like ready. They can just dismiss you if they don't like you. Whereas family, they need to like continue to show up in your life.
Yes, it's a protection thing that why they react the way they do.
They're just like, well, that and laziness. It's like, try some different thoughts. I swear, it's just like, just step outside the box.
Oh no.
Yeah. Your point too, before we run out of time for today.
Yeah. Oh no, she dropped off, but that's okay. Yeah, the point too is, if it's something really meaningful for us, like her story about flowers, there was a moment where she recognized it, when she said there was a moment where it came to her those are the really great places to start with a story and really dive into going back to that space, that time. What happened? How did it appear to us? How did we feel? Those elements, starting a story there, and then developing the right details around it to express it so people can understand it clearer. Because otherwise, we typically talk a lot, and people be like, "Gotcha," and then now you lost me, and now you got me back again. But when we develop that story, we get to help them understand it clearer, quicker, and we don't have to use as many words.
Beautifully said. And with that, it is time to end our morning session, and we will see you later today. And oh, guess what? Amy's on the Women Getting Visible podcast at 3 p.m. today as well, if you're watching this in real time.
Exactly.
And just go episodically, and we'll be there together. All right, my friends, we will see you this evening or see you next week at the same time on Wednesdays. Join us, look in the comments and everything below, and you'll find us. Thanks so much for joining us.
Share your story.